because we do record these, and I'll show you where you can find a copy of this recording next week. But the thing I want to do real quick is let me turn on my video camera so you can put a face to a name. So here I am. It looks like I'm actually in the office there at Sumo Logic. Our headquarters is in Redwood City, and this picture behind me makes it look like I am in Redwood City. And truth be told, I'm not. I'm actually in my home in New Hampshire. So teaching out of my attic, but probably looks a little better. The office looks a little bit better than my attic. So anyway, like I said, I wanted to welcome you all to class, and any questions, please feel free to ask them. That's my real big request here. So if you've got a question, I've learned through the years of teaching that if you've got a question, chances are somebody else in the room has a similar question, and your question will jog their question. And then before you know it, we may have covered things in kind of a real fun and interactive way. Okay. One thing I am also going to do here is I am going to upload a PDF document that has a listing of some of the labs and stuff that we're going to do. So I'm in the process of uploading it. And if you can see it, if you can download it from the chat box, you are certainly welcome to do so. We'll talk about that PDF document a little bit. So like I said, my name is John Meredith. I am one of the trainers here, member of the education team here at Sumo Logic, and I am the East Coast instructor trainer. So makes sense, I'm on the East Coast. Anyway, let me stop the video, save the bandwidth, and let's get this party started. So our game plan for this next hour, or actually 55 minutes or so, is we're going to talk a little bit about basic queries, and we're going to talk about what a metric is and why we really built this workshop. This workshop was built for really two reasons. First reason is that people had looked at our metric classic interface, and they told us that, gee, it's very complicated. Gee, it's very hard to use, running those queries, building those queries, and that sort of thing. So our developers went back to the developer rooms, and they came up with a much cleaner and nicer and smoother interface. And so, of course, I'll ask you when we wrap up, if you like the new interface. I think you will, because it uses key value pairs. So I can say, look, I want to grab a metric, and then I get a list of metrics, and I will pick my metric that I want. And oh, by the way, I want to pick some sort of a metadata tag like source category, and I can filter it then based on that source category. Or maybe I want to pick a operator. Maybe I want to take the average of something. So I think you're going to find that, number one, that we did a better job of creating this interface and made it much simpler. The second reason that we, quite frankly, are running this workshop is that we've got a lot of log customers. And of course, we love our log customers. We love all of our customers. But a lot of our log customers bought Sumo for logs, and they don't really use it for metrics. In fact, when you sign up and you say, look, I'm going to ingest so much data, these various tiers and all stuff, we give you so many metrics. And we find that a lot of our customers aren't using the metrics they're allotted. So again, this is a great opportunity, in my mind, to learn how to take advantage of this tool and do some metric querying and things like that. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Then we're going to talk about the applications that we have, the built-in apps out of the box that have built-in dashboards and queries and things like that. And we'll walk through a couple of those. Then finally, we'll talk about unified alerts and how you can create an alert out of a metric as well as logs. And then we'll kind of wrap it up and send you all on your way. So that's the game plan here for the hour. And having done this morning, it will probably take about an hour to get you through this. So just bear with me. And when I say an hour, we'll get you done at the top of the hour, not an hour from right now. So a couple of terms, right? What is a metric? Well, a metric is something that's typically numeric that measures the value of something over time. So when we by default look at a metric, usually on the x-axis here, we've got some indicator of time. Hours, minutes, seconds, whatever. And on the y-axis, the measure of the metric itself, the values of the metric. We might have dual axes, axes on the right, axes on the left to measure a couple different things. That's all very easy and very controllable. So if you think about metrics in your life, right? If those of you have kids, right? Maybe you went through the exercise of marking the height of your kid every 6 months. That's always a fun one. By the way, my kids are grown and gone. And so they're 38, so they're out of the nest and they have their own kids. They mark them on the wall. So, but that was kind of fun once. If you want to measure your week once a week over a week, that you can do that. I'm not a big, weight person. So, but these are various things that people do every day with metrics. Now, In a company, you're probably going to look at your key performance indicators, right? How much am my system's up, my system's down, those key performance indicators, those things that keep you up at night. And we want to see how they are doing over time to see if things getting better or things getting worse. Back in the old days when I did my couple stints as an IT manager, right? I'd buy a new server, and boy, I'd buy the top of the line server, RAID arrays and all that good stuff. And boy, that thing, hummed along at, 5% CPU. And then I had some more applications over time. It came to 10% and 25%. And then before you know it, in 10 years or 6 years later, that thing was just having a tough time keeping up. And it's the nature of technology, right? We always add more things to our resources and all that. Of course, now with the cloud, we can just spin up another cloud environment as we need to. So it makes it a lot easier. But we also want to look and see if we got outages have occurred, indication when there's problems. Again, it's a good example of when I might use an alert that, hey, my system went down, please let me know, right? And so I can make sure I try to resurrect it or do what I need to do to mitigate the damage that's being done by that system being down. So these are things that we typically use for and how we deal with metrics, right? Now, as I mentioned, we measure metrics as something called data points per minute, metric DPMs. And as I mentioned, most customers don't come close to their allotted DPMs, and that's okay. I mean, you're a customer, you spend your money as you want to, but we really want to make sure you get all the value out of this that you can. So you'll find that if you ever do a logs to metric conversion, one of the things it will show you as you go through the process is how many DPMs you're allotted, how many you have left over, or how many you still have. And then, of course, if you do a logs to metric, it will tell you what this log to metric conversion is going to cost you as far as DPMs. And so, again, it's a handy thing to know to make sure and see basically what's going on with regards to your metrics. Right? As far as metric ingestion and storage, we do not ingest metric data that's more than a week old. We don't. Okay? More than a week old, we don't consider to be current. We don't consider to be valid. So we'll reject that. Now, there's other places you can store it and other things that you can do, but as far as we're concerned, we'll let it pass. Now, the other thing is we receive metrics, and we receive metrics every 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you set up on your metric source. We will typically take that metric data that's raw that comes in at those 5 or 10 second intervals or whatever, and we'll store that for 7 days. Then at 1 minute increments, we automatically calculate a max value, a min value, an average value, a sum value, and a count. And out of those 1 minute increments, we save that for 30 days. And then at 1 hour increments, as the data is coming in, we will calculate again a max, a min, an average, a sum, and a count. And we will store that for 13 months. So my message to you is real simple. When I'm looking at my metrics, I can basically go back a year and see what my metric performance was within an hour. And I can go back, if I want to go down within a minute, I can typically go back 30 days. And if I'm looking at my raw data, I can go back within 7 days. Okay. So some good information there that'll probably help you out. Now, with Sumo Logic and our data flow, just bear with me a second. I'm going to make a pass by and make sure everybody's got their microphones turned on, and they don't. So let me enable some microphones. So if you got any questions, you can ask them directly. You don't have to type them in the chat box. Just bear with me while I.
Hey, John, while you're doing that, you mentioned something about uploading a document and that we could get it from the chat, but I'm not seeing it.
You probably won't until I upload it again. Those of you came in late, it won't show up for you. So just bear with me. I will upload that again. I knew that was going to happen, so that's fine. I'll probably upload it about 3 or 4 times while we're here. So it's not a big deal. Again, what we're going to do, by the way, in this class, we're going to do some hands-on exercises. So we want to get you a chance to log into our training environment and see things. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-upload that. Now, some of you on your company Zoom may not be allowed to receive a document. Okay. Some companies are a bit security conscious when it comes to that. And therefore, you may not see this document that I'm sending right now up to the chat box. But if you go into the chat box, you should see it down toward the bottom, and you should be able to download it. It says studentlabs.pdf. If you don't see it, don't worry about it, because I'm going to walk through everything anyway, so you don't need to see the document. But it's a handy reference. If you want to go back and do these exercises next week, you certainly can. Okay. Yeah, Kevin points out a good point. If you're in browser only, if you're not using the Zoom client, you won't see that document. So not a big deal. It is something, like I said, I'm going to use to walk through things, but the directions in there, I've got them in slides. I've got all the stuff that we're going to do. So you don't necessarily need the document, but it's handy. So thank you, Kevin, for pointing that out. Now, as far as the Sumo Logic data flow goes, right, we need to get our data into Sumo Logic. And so we have collectors and we have sources. The collectors, if you're on the cloud, they already exist. They're hosted by us. You don't have to do anything. They're there. So if you're on AWS, you're on Azure, you're on Google Cloud Platform, collectors already exist. If you're using software as a service like Salesforce, Office 365, or Google applications, again, you don't have to worry about that collector. It already exists. We have it. We provide it. Done. But if you want to get a hold of some of your on-prem equipment, some of your local servers and things like that, then you probably will need to install a collector. This collector is a lightweight Java-based application. When I say lightweight, it'll take less than 1% of your CPU, and take 1% of your memory. So it's not a big deal. Its job, quite frankly, is to take the data that we get, the metric data and the log data, compress it, encrypt it, and send it to Sumo. That's all it does. Encrypt, compress, send. Encrypt, compress, send. It's all it does. Okay. So my collector is the highway, my collector is the highway on which the data, hang on a second. Sorry, guys, we'll do this way. The collector, tries one more time, this time with feeling, is the highway in which this data goes. So think of a collector as the highway that transfers the data to the Sumo Logic environment so that you can see it. The sources are the actual sources of data. So if you're running AWS and you want your CloudTrail data, CloudTrail logs, there you go. CloudTrail is a source. You want your CloudTrail metrics? Again, that's a source. You can use that. You want host metrics? That's a source. You can use that. All of the various Kubernetes metrics and stuff like that, again, that's a source. You can use that. So the individual sources of data that you bring in are going to go through these collectors. Now, we don't typically teach in this 1 hour workshop anything to do with data collection with regards to collectors and sources. But if you do take the 3-hour metric mastery course, we do show you, and we will install a collector together, and we will set up some sources together and see how that process works. But that's how we get data into Sumo. Now, once we got data into Sumo, now we can either run log searches or metric searches, depending on the type of data that we're dealing with. Obviously, our focus today is going to be metric queries. So we can write various metric operators, and I'll talk about those in a minute. We can aggregate this information, display charts. You'll find, I think, in our new metric interface, the charting capability very powerful and very easy to use. Then we can take those queries with those charts and we can send them out to a dashboard. A dashboard is nothing more than a collection of queries or a collection of charts to show me the various data that I want to see. And then, of course, we can also create alerts. That's part of the visualizing and monitoring. So for those of you who want to learn about log queries and things like that, there's a log search mastery class. For those of you who want to learn about metric queries and all that fun stuff, they're in the metric mastery class. We go through all 3 of these different layers. So we've got a little more time to do it there. We don't have as much time here. So as far as our metric operators, you'll find that our metric operators are in our documentation. How do you get to our documentation? It's real simple. help.sumologic.com, that URL, help.sumologic.com. And if I stop my slides here for just a second, and if I grab a Google Chrome tab here and I type in help.sumologic.com, and I can see I got a bunch of chapters. So here's my start here chapter, my send data chapter, my search chapter. Lo and behold, I have a metric chapter. And so if I went into my metric chapter, I would find my metric operators here. But I could also just flat out search for them. Type in metric operators. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is a link to all of our metric operators. So I will put this in the chat box as well, so that you all have it. And not to be outdone, people ask us, well, gee, can I get this in a PDF? Well, of course you can. Right up here at the top, there's a link to a PDF. cheat sheet, and you can print this out and put it next to your computer and all that fun stuff. And by the way, we also have the same sort of thing for our log operators. So we try to make it very, very easy for you. Okay. That is our goal here, to be able to use this tool and be able to do the things that y'all need to do. All right. One other thing I want to mention here before I leave this, there's another site that's very handy for us. And that is our help site, our support site, or more importantly, our community site. So if I go to support.sumologic.com, support.sumologic.com, that's our support site. And here in our support site, there's a link for our community. And if you go to the community, and if you were to search for the word slides, SLIDES, and I'll explain in a minute why you'd want to, you'll see that we have a link here, and I'll put this link in the chat box as well, that shows us all of our certification courses, a link to their labs, a link to a recording of those classes, and a link to the slides. And I am here to tell you that by next week, we will have in here the metric basic workshop, and we will have a link to the PDF document that I talked about. We'll have a link to this recording, and we'll have a link to the slides as well. So that will be here next week. And again, if you'd like, I will copy and put this in the chat box. So just want to try to make it easy for you. All right. Now back to my slides. In fact, let me make sure here that everybody's got their microphones enabled. Looks like got one more done there. And let's go ahead and get back on topic. Again, as I'm going through this, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay. All right. So what we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about basic query mode. And basic query mode, you'll find we've got a basic query mode and an advanced query mode. Well, by default, our earlier rendition of metrics had an advanced query mode. And like I said, our user said it was too complicated. It was a little bit tough to use. And so we created this basic query mode to make things very easy. Again, we use a key value pair. We can say something like metric equals whatever metric I want. And then my filters, I can filter by a certain metadata tag and whatever that value is. And if I want to aggregate or average or do something over here, that's what this plus sign is. So we really tried to make this easy with a simple pull down pick list. You can see what's available. The interface is simple and clean. And from here, you can start creating your visualizations, as I'll show you in just a minute. So we'll go into that. Let's take a look at this. Let's see this in action. Now, for this, if you do want to log in, we would love to have you log into our training environment. And to log into our training environment, there's about 4 steps. So let me put this information in the chat box as well. The first step is fire up Google Chrome or Firefox and go to service.sumologic.com. Again, that's service.sumologic.com. And if you go to service.sumologic.com, your screen should look like my screen. And it's asking you for an email address and it's asking you for a password. Okay. Now, the second thing I want you to do is I want you to pick a number, a 3-digit number from 001 to 999. And if you would, type it in the chat box. So pick a 3-digit number. Anybody who's a James Bond fan is going to grab 007, right? I'm up here in New Hampshire, so I might grab 603, which is the area code for the state. Pick a 3-digit number. I don't really care which one you pick, but you're going to log in as Training Plus Analyst with that 3-digit number. So if you grab, for example, 235, great. Training Plus Analyst at sumologic.com. That's going to be your username. Okay. One thing I recommend you do is stay away from the high 900s if you can. Okay. Just because those seem to have problems. And then the password here, ladies and gentlemen, is not that. The password is, in honor of summer, Sumo Summer 21 exclamation mark. So that's a capital SUMO, capital SUMMER, numeral 2, numeral 1, with an exclamation mark at the end. So you should be able to type that information in and you should be able to hit sign in and it should log you in. That one logged me in. Great. Okay. And I'm going to log out because I want to log in with my account. So what I'd like you all to do is I'd like you all to log in. Okay. And if you're having problems logging in, let me know. So hopefully we're all able to log in. If you are able to log in, if you would raise your hand, that would be wonderful. So, and again, I realize that for some of you, you're trying to take this class and somebody from the day job may have tapped you on the shoulder and said, we got a problem. And so you may have to break yourself away. You're still signed in, but you may have to break yourself away. I understand. I feel for you. Been there, done that, got lots of those t-shirts. So I do feel for you, but looks like people are raising their hands here. Looks like about 37 hands up. I'm sorry, excuse me. We got about 14 hands up out of 37. Make that 15 hands up. So I want to give you a few minutes. Again, if you're having problems, please let me know. If you're unable to log in and you're trying that sort of thing. Again, you don't have to do these exercises. You don't have to do these labs, but it's more fun if you're playing around, clicking on the keyboard rather than just watching somebody. So we want to give you that opportunity. Okay. All right. I am not hearing anybody who's having issues. So that's good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and lower all the hands. And I'm going to assume those of you who wanted to get in did get in. And I'm going to log in with my account. Ooh. And I'm going to close this up because it's just in my way. So the first thing you might notice is you might have a bunch of tabs up here. Okay. I got a bunch of tabs because I left it early and I left a bunch of tabs open. To close all these tabs, of course, I could click them one at a time, which is absolutely absurd. Or if you look at any one of these tabs, you'll see there's 3 vertical dots. We call that 3 vertical dots the More Action button. And if you click on the More Action button, you'll see you have an option at the bottom that says, close all those tabs. And if you click on close all those tabs, it closes all of those tabs. Makes it real simple for you. Okay. Over here on the left, this is my navigation pane. My navigation pane happens to be open. If yours is not open, where it says Sumo Logic up here and you got the hamburger menu, if you click on that, that will open it up. If you don't want it open anymore, you can click on this left turn signal and close it up. So again, which is better? 1, open, 2, close. I'll let you decide. Okay. But that navigation pane lets us access things in here. All right. Now, for our first activity, what I want to do is I want to show you a basic metric query. And I want to show you this new metric interface. So I can click either on this metric icon right here, or it might be easier to go to new, the new button, and click on metrics. By the way, depending on your keyboard, you can also do an Alt-M, M for metrics. And so here I am in my metric explorer. Now, I need to warn you, there's 2 modes of the metric explorer. There's a basic mode, which is the mode that I'm in right now. So if your screen, like my screen, says metric and has a bunch of underline after it, filters with an underline after it, and add operators ghosted out, you're in the right place. If, however, when you look in here, if you see where it says enter a metric query, you're in advanced mode. And if you're in advanced mode, it's not a big deal. All you have to do is move your cursor over to the far right where this wonderful More Action button is again, click on it, and you can switch back to basic mode. So I want all of us to be in basic mode where we get to pick a metric, we get to pick filters, and all of that stuff using key value pairs. Any problems or questions there? Excellent. So the metric I want to pick, as I put my cursor there and I click, I can start typing in. Of course, I can see this lovely long laundry list. But if I start typing in, it's going to start filtering. So if I start typing in CPU, I say I got a bunch of CPU things here. And if I click on CPU load average 15 minutes, that's the one that I want. And it will put that value up here. I see there's something in the chat box. So let's see what we got. Okay, somebody's grabbed the number. That's cool. All right, so what I'm looking at here, just by saying CPU load average, I am seeing there are 456 things in here. These are different systems that are giving me their CPU load average for a 15-minute period. Okay. So we got a question here. Carlos asked a really good question. What is the benefit to use advanced mode? You're going to find that some of our queries have to be done in advanced mode. Some of our operators only work in advanced mode, Carlos. So there is a reason to use the advanced mode, but it is more complicated and certainly not going to be the conversation of today's workshop. So great question. Appreciate you asking it, but we're not going to go into advanced mode now, but you may need it for some functions. And by the way, in the metric mastery class, we do about the first 5 labs, 6 labs in basic mode, and then we do the rest of the labs in advanced mode, so you get a chance to see both. Okay. So thanks for asking. Okay. Ryan is trying to log in and he's getting a message that says, please verify your credentials. So he's logging in as training plus analyst 816 at sumologic.com with the password of sumo summer 21 exclamation mark. Excellent. Those are the right things. I would try a different account, Ryan. Try a different number. Pick 603. Okay. Training plus analyst 603. That's work. I know 235 just worked. So you can also use 235 if you want. Try a different number. Sometimes these accounts get a little locked up. Okay. But it looks like your information there is correct. Okay.
That worked. Thank you.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. We don't want to leave anybody behind. Okay. So as I mentioned, we've got about 456 items here. And what's really cool is if I click on the chart tab, boom, all of a sudden, I now see it looks like the spaghetti factory. All right, all kinds of lines going all kinds of different ways. And if I want to here, I can, find an intersecting line and get a tooltip here about what's this line trying to tell me or whatever. I can go down here to my legend. I can turn some of these on or some of these off if I want to, so I can filter them. If I want to, rather than making these a line series chart, maybe I want bar charts. Great, no problem. There's my bar charts. Or maybe I want column charts. So hopefully changing this interface is not hard. I want to change the color scheme. And you can change the color scheme. Pretty simple. If I want to here, I'm going to go back to line charts, if you don't mind. I can also make these honeycomb. So what it's going to do is it's going to display my values as individual honeycombs. And if I want to, I can conditionally format them so that range values will display in green, certain range values display in yellow, certain range values will display in red. And I hope that you all realize, like I do, this is pretty simple. This is pretty powerful. It's pretty good. It's good stuff here. And so I hope that you like this. Now, what I want to do is I want to go back to my time series. I want to go back to my line, and I want to go back to this gosh awful spaghetti factory. And here, what I want to do is I want to filter it. So I want to filter it. I want to filter it by something called the source category, which is one of the metadata tags that we use. So I'm going to click on source category, and it's going to type source category equals. And then I can pick a field or a host that has a source category name. And so I can, for example, here grab host metric JWM, which is actually my computer, my Mac's host metrics. And I'm going to select that. So now I am seeing my CPU load average for my computer. And if I wanted to, I could actually modify this. I'm going to click on the close button, and I'm going to say, I want to see host metric /star. This is going to show me anything that has host metric in it. And in my case, there were 2 values. There was /JWM, which is me. There's /JB, which is Josh Broheim, who's my boss. And so I can see how my metrics are doing compared to Josh's. Here's Josh's Mac. Here's my Mac. Okay. And so again, I've got an idea of how things are going. And of course, I can change the color schemes and all that fun stuff. Let me go back here though, and I just want to filter for just my particular metric. So let me go back here. Notice when I get rid of the star, I can see host metrics JB, host metrics JWM. We've got a couple other host metrics, Stacy, which is our boss collectively. And then I can see our prod host metrics. Again, I'm going to select my host metric. And there is my single metric, my CPU load average for 15 minutes. Now, I want to add another query in here because I want to compare it. So I'm going to click this plus sign over here. And I'm going to grab the same metric again. So I'm going to grab CPU. I'll start tapping it in. And I grab load average 15 minutes. Only this time I see my spaghetti factories back. Only this time I want to see the average of all of these machines. because I want to reduce this down to one record. You may recall we're at 456 plus mine, that's 457 records. But what I want to do is I want to change this operator here to average. And so now it's going to take, for this particular query, it's going to calculate the average of all of these hosts. And so now if I look here at the chart, I can see here's the average of those machines. And here I am sneaking under the wire. Now, again, those machines are probably cloud servers. They probably have a great deal more demand placed on them. My machine's just a client machine, right? I do work from it and that sort of thing. So obviously my CPU utilization should be a bit lower. But hopefully you see as well as I do how easy it is to see this information. Okay. So any questions about this first activity? All right, then back to the slides. So the next thing we want to talk about is that we've got a whole host of applications that you can use. We've got a whole host of applications to make it easy for you to do things. In fact, with these applications, you don't have to write any queries. Now, our hope is if you install one of our apps, that's going to get you 70 to 90% of where you need to be. And then you can adjust and modify any queries or modify any dashboards to get you that perfect 100% that you need to be. So when we think about full stack observability, which of course is another thing that we're becoming more known for, our application observability, regardless of whether your infrastructure is, regardless of what microservice platforms you're running, regardless of any of this, we have applications that let us see how my MySQL databases are running or my MongoDB databases are running. I can see various Kubernetes metrics, and I can see when I hit a threshold where I need to spawn off another environment. And of course, I can also see your platform, whether your platform is infrastructure, your local on-prem infrastructure, CPU utilization, memory utilization, or if you're in the cloud and you want to look at various cloud metrics. So our product allows you to look at metrics as well as logs. My metrics typically tell us what is going on. My logs typically tell us why it is going on, what the problem is or what's happening. But my metrics typically give me some sort of a quantifiable idea of how my applications are doing. So in our next two activities, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the metric app. We're going to look specifically at the process metric app, and we're going to have it tell us a story. We're going to have us identify what the problem is as far as our host processes, where a problem is, where a bottleneck is. And then after that, we're going to look at a MySQL app. And in the MySQL app, we're going to notice that we've got a lot of slow querying. And we're going to investigate that, and we're going to figure out what's happening. Okay. Steve has a question, MongoDB question. Can this measure the count of new items per collection? Good question, Steve. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you where we can find out. So let me stop my slides for just a second. And let's go into Sumo Logic. And let's open up our navigation pane. Again, to open up the navigation pane, just click on Sumo Logic or that hamburger menu there. And then down here in the main menu, this is our main menu. And if you click on App Catalog, this shows you the almost 200 apps that we have. And if you wanted to, Steve, we could obviously search for MongoDB, right? And so here is MongoDB. I also have a MongoDB Atlas. But if I click on MongoDB, I can preview the dashboards and I can see, and I'll maybe magnify this up a little bit, so I can see exactly what kind of information these dashboards are giving me. Error summaries, socket exceptions, timeout, all of that fun stuff. I find this Zoom feature is real handy for those of us in the over 50 category. But the point is that you can see the kind of information this dashboard is, or this particular dashboard. Let me see if I can get it out of Zoom mode here. And then I can go to the next dashboard and I can see all these lovely little dashboards here and see if it's going to give you that information that you're looking for. Now, to answer your question, we should be able to create a query that probably does what you want. So, yeah, if somebody's got an open mic, is there a question? Okay. I figured that some of you can relate to the over 50 joke. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. So what we want to do though in this class, and this is true for any app that you're interested in, you can look at the app, see the samples, look at the queries. In fact, if I go back to that MongoDB, I can see there's some queries down here, some information it provides me. If I want to, if I can tie this to a data source, I can actually see what this dashboard is telling me. Or again, I can look at these metrics and see the kind of information that's telling me. Now, you're going to find that the MySQL exercise we're going to do is very similar to that. And the good news is I'm not going to show you how to install these apps or how to add to library. We already have these installed here because of time. We already have them. So if you and I go into our navigation pane by, again, clicking on Sumo Logic or that hamburger menu, and if you go into the shared library, which is a common area that all of us can see, and if you go in there, the first one we want to focus on is this folder called Host and Processed Metrics. And if I open up this folder of Host and Processed Metric, you'll see I've got a whole bunch of dashboards. And I always recommend you start with the Host Metric Overview. So I'm going to start with Host Metric Overview, and it's going to then populate various information, populate my dashboard. And so here I can see my host with a high CPU utilization. The CPU on this host is 90%. And I have to ask myself, why? It shouldn't be running that hot. In fact, these are also kind of running hot and all that fun stuff. But what's really cool about this is I can click on this particular panel. It opens up a sub panel over here on the right. I can click down here where it says link to dashboards, host metric CPU, and it will then take me to that dashboard. And here I can look at my CPU usage by process. And as I look down here, I can see there's some processes that are running just great, right? Tooltip here, 10%. My app, payment app backup is running great. I can look at some other processes down here by putting my cursor on the tooltip, okay? Again, this one right here, payment app checkout is running great. This one, not so much. It's running hot, okay? My payment app monitor, this is running about 80%, about 80%, 85%. Now it's down to 70, you know, so forth on. But this is obviously telling me which process is running hot. And then if I put my cursor anywhere on here and I click on that line, and it's a little tricky, sometimes a little fussy there. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Try this again. Give me a second. I should get that same panel to open up. But rather than worry about that panel, let's see if I can get this thing to, there we go. My panel opens up. And from here, I can go to my process metric details. And if I click on my process metric details, now I can look at this particular process and I can see on this particular process who's running it, right? Process app checkout monitor is being run by John, and it's reading this many bytes, writing this many bytes, and CPU usage is 85%. So now I can talk to John and say, hey, John, what's going on with this payment app, this monitor? And what, maybe we need to rebuild it. Maybe we need to do something else with it. We need to, something's wrong with that. Or maybe it's because John's using it under his account rather than under some sort of a system attended account. But now we've got an idea of really what's going on here. And we can, through just by clicking on some dashboards, got an idea of this problem and this issue. So that's the second activity. And by the way, these activities are in this document, okay? This PDF document that I posted up there that some of you, if you're doing this through the web, Zoom through the web, you can't see. And in some cases, your company may also have prevented you from doing that. But we'll have this PDF document posted, as I showed you in the community, under Metric Workshop, so that you can do this again if you want to. Or if you want to show a colleague what you learned today, you guys can certainly do that. Now, my next activity is my third activity. I want to go back into my Sumo Logic navigation panel. And I want to go where it says Metric Workshop. And under Metric Workshop, I have this MySQL Workshop. And so if I open up the MySQL Workshop folder, I see there's a bunch of folders and a dashboard. MySQL overview. Always a good idea to start with the overview panel. So let me click on that. And this is now looking at my SQL databases. I can see how many errors I have, how many replication errors I have, how many connection errors I have, okay? But in my case, I'm really worried about the successfully slow queries. And I can, you can, we can click on this panel. And I'm not sure where this X is coming from. I noticed this morning. I've talked to my folks in product design. They are getting back to me on this. But if I open this up, come on, open up now. Try this again, this time with feeling. If I open this up, I should get my panel that pops up over here to the right. Technology has decided to give me the finger today. Okay. And apparently it's decided to, yeah, definitely give me the finger. Ultimately, what should happen is I should have a side panel that pops out here. And that side panel should allow me to go to my, hang on a second, to my MySQL slow queries dashboard. And if I click on that, I can now see that of all my slow queries, here's a breakdown of my top IP slow queries and what IPs are coming from and what users they're coming from. And I can see my slow queries by host or excessively slow queries. I can see by command types. And I can see my top 10 slowest queries listed right here. So this is tied back to my logs. And so here I can start investigating these queries and start looking for, can we improve their execution plan? Can we do something to improve this, improve the performance? So hopefully, no worries, Steve. Again, you can see here that I'm able to go, from a top level problem down here to the log details. And these are actually from my logs. And so I can see, again, what's causing this. And then I can start working through this one piece at a time, looking at these and start fixing them and hopefully improving my overall performance. Okay. So that's my third activity. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you all about, and the good news is we got about 15 minutes left. We're in good shape. The last thing I want to talk about is alerting, right? If my systems start to go south or I start having a problem, or I start hitting a threshold, I want to be notified. And so this is another area we made nice improvements in the product where you and I can do unified alerting. Now, two ways that I can obviously do alerting, right? I can have a dashboard that's up in my network operations center on the big flat screen TVs. And if they see something on that causes their attention, they can take action on it. But when I talk about monitors and alerts, I'm talking about something that says a value has gotten over a certain value. I'm going to send an email, hit pager duty, notify you on Slack or Teams, something like that. That is what I consider to be more of an alert. But companies use both of these techniques. Now, I want to show you something. Back when I created my metric query back here, okay, and I had, again, my average query here, or better yet, let me remove this average query. And there's my J Meredith query. I could click on the More Action button on this query, and you'll see that I can add this as a monitor. So I can click Add Monitor. This then says I am going to create a monitor out of this query. It brought the query right over. It's a metric query. And then here is the value of my query results. Now, if this was a real CPU utilization, I probably would say, if I'm missing data, yeah, notify me. This system's critical. It should always be having a heartbeat. It should always have some CPU utilization. If it's not getting any data, I've lost my connection to that machine may be down, notify me, okay? And you can define the criteria. Additionally, I want to set a warning level that says if this is at a certain value. Now, truth be told, I think I'm about 2.5%. I don't think I really need to set a warning level for 2.5%. I'd probably more like 70 or 80%. But to make this work, given the numbers I have, I'm going to say, look, if you get above 2%, greater than or equal to 2% for a period of time, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, we'll consider that to be a warning state. Now, one other thing our alerts that give us the ability to do, not only will we tell you when the alert occurs, we can also tell you when it recovers from that alert. We'll notify you for that as well. And I can use the same value here if I want to, or I can throw the switch and I can change this value. So I can make it more like a safety valve. It blows at one level and resets at another. So, and I can also do the same thing here with my missing data. When I start getting my data back, I want you to notify me. And I can also set a critical level. So here in my critical level, I want to set it equal to maybe if I go 2.5, over 2.5, I want to, maybe that's what I want to set up. Again, reality in a real CPU, probably 90% or something like that, whatever you want to do. So you define, again, the query that you want. Then you define the triggering mechanism. Then the last thing you do is you just say, how do I want to be notified? Do I want to be notified via email? Do I want to be notified via Datadog? Do I want to be notified via some service like PagerDuty or something like that? Do I want to be notified by Slack? We can create hooks into other systems based on their APIs. So the point is how do you want to be notified? And for argument's sake and simplicity's sake, I'll say create a new email. And then who do I want to send this to? I can send it to my distribution list or to my users or whatever I want. Okay. Paul has a comment here about my Mac, my load here, right? How it's running so nicely. I can obviously address who I want to send this to. On my subject line, I can put a combination of static and dynamic text. And here's some other dynamic variables here that I can use. So my trigger type would say something like missing data or missing data recovered or warning or warning recovered or critical and critical recovered. And then here's my search name, and I could put in my description, my monitor type, all that fun stuff. And then of course I can actually type in the message. Houston, we have a problem. Whatever. And it will put other information and stuff in there. Now the question is, do I want this to fire off when I'm missing data and I recover? And oh, by the way, maybe when I'm critical and I recover, warning, and I recover, fine. Do I want to add an additional notification type? Maybe I want to send an email and also I want to send something to PagerDuty. You can add additional notifications. And then the last thing that you get to do is you get to give this thing a name. CPU or whatever. Okay. And then we get to click the save button. And oh, I forgot to put an email address here. Let's just put my email address in there. There we go. And so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And so now if I go in here to manage data, and if I click on alerts, I will now see that alert. My JWM host, right now it's showing as normal. I can see some of these alerts have hit a critical stage or missing data. I can see warnings. By the way, in here, I can add and group my different monitors into folders to organize them. And if I manually wanted to add a new monitor here, I could take and create a new monitor here. And again, make it a metric monitor. And I get to pick whatever kind of metric I want. Let's just try something different here. Disk space used. And I'm going to go to a specific, I'm going to use my machine again, if you don't mind. Okay, it doesn't look like it's got my machine, but here I've got some values. And again, I can define my criteria for these values, and I can go through here and notify folks, and I can save this like any other monitor. So this is pretty cool. I hope you find this easy to generate these alerts and monitors. I also hope you find it very nice that I can go here, I'm going to discard this, and I can see my alerts and monitors. And oh, by the way, if I don't want that monitor anymore, of course, I can either disable it or I can delete it. Okay. I can even export it if I want to and re-import it to another Sumo Logic environment if I want to, making it easy to do that. So I see we've got some questions in here. Okay, fair enough. I think we'll just take care of that. And any other questions? Okay, thanks for the overview. Need to drop? No problem. So I've got about 10 minutes left. So let's wrap this up. So what I hope that you all have taken from this, the alerts demo there, what I hope you've taken from this is that's pretty slick metric interface. And you can now create some nice, powerful queries to get the information that you need. Additionally, we got a bunch of built-in applications that allow you out of the box right now to see the information that's going on with your MongoDB, with your AWS environments, and all that fun stuff. And then finally, the unified alerting, pretty simple, and allows you to create alerts so that you can be proactive rather than reactive. Okay. What is the advantage over New Relic alerts? Manuel, I honestly don't know. Okay. There are folks in our organization on the sales side that compare us with our competitors. I don't know New Relic, therefore I don't know. But I'm sure they can tell you. But I don't know. I'm sorry. That's not probably the answer you want to hear, but I'm trying to be honest. And that's something I always strive to be as honest with you here. So let me close that question down. It's a good question. I can obviously, Emmanuel, if you want, get one of your account team members to get back to you on that if you want. So it's not a big deal. As far as learning about more metrics, again, you can go to our documentation, help.sumologic.com. And if you go into the metric chapters, you'll see it's going to go /metrics. And then also, if you want to look at our built-in applications, that's chapter 7, the Sumo Logic apps. And we also have a bunch of YouTube videos. So if you go to YouTube and you do a search for Sumo Logic, you will see we've got a host of training videos, short videos, 5 to 10 minutes, or maybe less than 5 minutes, that talk about how to set up a collector, how to set up a source, how to set up metrics, and how to do logs to metrics. Every single task that you might have to do in Sumo Logic, there's probably a YouTube video for it. Or if you want, you can also attend some of our training. So again, we've got a 3-hour, it's actually 2 hours of lab and lecture, and 1 hour for the certification exam, this metric mastery class that we typically offer at least once every month, if probably more often than that. We've got other classes as well. If you want to deal with log queries and search mastery, if you're dealing with security and compliance, we've got a nice class for that as well as a class for Kubernetes, specifically focusing on Kubernetes. Again, how you get there, sumologic.com/learn/training. And that will take you to the site where you can see what classes we offer. We also try to do regional certification and workshop jam type things. And we'll typically do those. Obviously, we're doing those virtually. So we just did an EMEA one for Europe. We do ones for the West Coast. We do some for the East Coast of the United States. And you're welcome to join those. Those are virtual right now. I hope that in 2022, we start getting a chance to do this face-to-face. And we get a chance to meet face-to-face. But so what questions do you all have, and how can I best help you here? Yeah.
Thanks, John.
No problem. So that's it. That's what we've got, folks. Like I said, I hope to see you again. Otherwise, thank you for spending an hour with me, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and an upcoming weekend, real nice weekend. So please be safe. Be cool out there. It's pretty warm out. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye.